Hi again, everyone, and welcome to the latest instalment of the Foundation Year's Recruitment and Retention podcasts. Once more, we'll discuss the challenges of attracting and retaining top talent within our early years settings. And today, I'm thrilled to welcome Cara Brundle, Director of Business Development at the National Day Nurseries Association, who will talk us through some of the strategies and experiences from within her organisation. And Cara, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Seb.
So to begin, would it be possible to hear what recruitment strategies your organisation have found to be successful in firstly attracting top talent and staff to earlier settings?
Well, I think the first thing to say is what could be more important really than educating and caring for our youngest children? The foundations of brain development, we know, and all future learning are laid during this time. So for the right person, a job in early years can be, it's joyful, it's varied, and you get to shape children's futures every day. So it's that, for a start, is to sort of to sell it really and show what all the great things about a job in early years are. Not only that, but you're supporting parents and families to go to work. They can do that in confidence that you're helping to give their children the very best start in life. So keeping it positive. I mean, we know salaries in the sector are not the highest, but there are lots of other reasons why people work every day with passion in roles like this. We work with lots of different nurseries, from the smallest single site settings up to the biggest chains. And we know that nurseries will have lots of different approaches to recruitment. So we would say anybody that's recruiting staff, and lots of nurseries are doing this all the time, think about who you're looking for, what level you're looking to recruit at. The first thing is get the job description and the person spec right. Involve the manager in this. Make sure that you're sure about what skills and qualifications, what experience you need for this particular role. If anything's not clear, then that's going to cause problems further down the line. If it's a managerial role, it's hard to recruit. You know that there's a lot of competition for the right people out there. So do you have somebody who could progress into that role? Maybe you've got somebody who could do that with a bit of coaching. If you've got time for that, and if it's not urgent, then that can be a really good way to increase morale in your setting. If people see that there are opportunities to progress within your setting, that can be really good for the team as well. Think about what your ideal employer would be like, what skills, qualifications and experience. If you're going to go external, think about the messages on your website. Understand what's going to be important to that person, and try and make sure that your job ad is appealing. It sounds really obvious, but it's always a good thing to have a look at your sort of standard blurb and think, could it be a bit more sparky? Could it just resonate a little bit better with the people who you're looking to attract? We always get into a bit of a habit with these things, but you can always kind of refresh and zhuzh up the way that you market yourself. So it's the job ad. Also, I mean, the thing with nurseries is they're usually recruiting from their local community. It's quite a short commute usually for people travelling to these roles. So it's a good idea to, if you don't already, ask members of staff to spread the word about job opportunities that are available. You could think about introducing a small incentive for members of staff. I know lots of nurseries do that. Surprising how often we go into nurseries and there's somebody, a sibling or a cousin, or people's sort of friends and family who, if they find it a really positive working environment, they'll recommend it to others as well. You can always also attend local careers fairs, open days. Really just think about where those ideal recruits might be. It might be that there'll be people at the local primary school drop-off or local college. Can you put flyers up? It's a good idea, if you do, to make sure that the messaging again is likely to resonate, but you could pop a QR code on there that links directly to your website. And the great thing about that is that you can make sure that QR code sort of links to that particular place that you're advertising in, so you can track where people have found out about you from, and that can then inform your recruitment strategies going forward. I think being aware, I mean, I would say this because I'm responsible for marketing at NDNA, but make sure that your job ad and your website are that they represent you. You know, they're your links to the outside world. Make sure that the words you're using and the pictures you're using sort of tell people a bit about your setting, set you apart a little bit. You know, if you've got a beautiful outlook at your setting, make sure that that's visible. If you are in a really convenient location for people, make that clear. Or you might have an excellent benefits package. You know, make sure that you're not just using that website to appeal to parents, but also for potential employees as well. You can use positive testimonials from your members of your team. And the lovely thing about that is it not only says something about you as an employer, but again, it also talks positively about the staff that you've got working with children and families. And so that reflects well for families looking for nursery places as well, you know, that kind of the sort of positive messaging about what it's like to work in your setting. Using social media is a really good idea. You could use sort of Facebook ads and sort of paid Facebook advertising. That can be quite localized, so it's a good way of appealing to people locally. Signpost back to your website from your social media. And also make sure that, I suppose on a practical level, that your application process is clear and straightforward, and that you're not sort of putting barriers up, that it's easy for people to apply for your roles. I suppose in terms of how you recruit, recruiting for attitude is always a really good idea. You know, it's a bit of a cliche, but you can train to fill a skills gap, but attitudes are a bit harder to change. So thinking about that, and particularly in a nursery where you want to make sure that people are, you know, warm, friendly, calm, trustworthy, but also, you know, professional and sort of able to problem solve and sort of deal with challenges as they arise. At interview, I think useful to think about, you know, people can prepare standard answers, so it's good to maybe sort of surprise people a little bit and use interview questions that are kind of knowledge based or situational. So you could tell them about a recent issue that you've had, ask how they would deal with that, for example, and that's a good way to make sure you're continuously sort of refreshing your questions. So if people have friends and family members who have been interviewed by you before, you've got sort of different questions coming up to make sure that you're really kind of probing. I could go on. I mean, there's loads of stuff that lots of resources out there for people looking to recruit and looking for some inspiration. So
great, brilliant. Thank you. Lots of fantastic examples and strategies there to really consider when we're looking at that recruitment, that early recruitment stage within our setting. So can I just ask next then, after that stage, thinking about when teams are in place, staff are in role, what advice and what strategies have you seen to be successful in terms of retention and keeping those strong teams within the setting?
Yeah, I mean, really important, because it's not easy. It's not easy out there to recruit the right people. So it's if you can keep hold of the good people, then that's you avoid all that sort of the expense and the time spent reaching out and finding new members of staff. I suppose what we see is successful nurseries have people at their heart, really. Nursery practitioners are working with children every day. You want them to be happy and motivated. You want them to be clear about what's expected of them. Reward and recognition help. You know, if you can pay a little bit more, that's a little bit more attractive. If you can provide enhanced benefits, then that can help you to stand out from other employers. But many nurseries are just not able to do that. They can't, you know, it's hard out there at the moment. They can't necessarily afford the additional expense of sort of rising or raising salaries, especially after the recent national insurance rises. You know, all of that income is going to sort of pay the bills and pay your staffing. And nurseries don't want to put prices up for families either. So particularly for those smaller nurseries, I think it's more about how does it feel to work in your setting? You know, you want your employees to feel engaged, you want them to be enthusiastic, you want them to be happy coming into work and confident to make suggestions and solve problems. And you need to be able to trust them to do that as well. So I think the start of that is a really good induction. So once you've got a new person, you've taken them in, make sure that they, this is how you make sure that a new employee is clear about what's expected of them. You want them to know what their role is and how they fit in to the wider organisation as well. You also want them to have a clear sense of purpose. You want them to feel valued and supported from the first day. So it's a good idea to buddy them up with somebody who's maybe a bit more established in the team, so that if they've got questions, they can ask them, you know, in a kind of relaxed environment. Keep an eye on team dynamics. I think especially when you've got new members of staff coming in, dynamics can change. You know, people are spending a lot of hours together, so it's important that those team dynamics work. So keeping an eye on those peer relationships and making sure that morale is good and you're keeping them motivated, and that they're motivating each other, you know, even on those days where things don't go as planned, so that they're still happy to come into work. I think it's important, if you notice people are kind of not their usual self, that you pick up on that. You know, if you're noticing people are off sick a bit more, or somebody's turning up a bit late or something, then be sensitive, but also listen to what they've got to say and sort of try and address it quickly, so that you can keep the rest of the team happy and motivated as well. You know, it's partly about creating that environment, but it's also about picking up on things when they're going a little bit awry and sort of actively getting involved in sorting it out. And you need to trust your team. You know, you need to be honest and open with them, and they need to know that you are as well. So giving them responsibility, providing challenge where it's needed, but also making sure that people can come to you with concerns and sort of share ideas. All of that helps to make the staff in your nursery feel proud and feel part of it, and feel that that they're making a difference.
Amazing, thank you. We're obviously all clear on the fact that diverse and inclusive settings are of benefit to the setting as a whole, both the adults and the children within the settings. What ways have you seen recruitment and retention really supported by having those diverse, inclusive?
Yeah, it's really important, isn't it? Because you're recruiting based on skills and experience, but you also want to make sure that you've got people of different ages, genders, ethnicities. You know, that variety can help you to benefit from different insights and experiences. And it's important as well for your children and families to kind of recognise a bit of themselves, but also recognise that people are different. So that diversity kind of enables you to bring new ideas and sort of different ways of thinking to your setting. So I think things that you can do to make sure that happens, you can make sure that if you're using sort of social media and images, making sure that they will appeal to a broad range of people. So if you're advertising for jobs, making sure that it goes in lots of different places. You can use local PR, sort of sharing stories about things that you're doing with local papers. You know, they're always looking for content, so they're quite often happy to share this stuff. If you might have a food bank, or you've got sort of family fun days going on, or celebrating all sorts of different religions and beliefs, different festivals, you can use that as an opportunity to show your local community sort of the diversity of activities that go on within your setting. And that also gives people a flavour of what it's like to work in your nursery, and sort of says a lot about you as an employer. It's a good idea to monitor diversity, especially if you're advertising jobs. Monitor diversity among your applicants, so that you can see that you are managing to reach out to a wide range of people when you're advertising roles. It's important also to make sure that you're avoiding discriminating in your selection process. So making sure that you're keeping full records of how you make decisions, using scoring systems, for instance, that helps you just to make sure that you are being fair and also holding evidence about sort of how you've made those decisions. There might also be sort of reasonable adjustments you might need to make, particularly if you've got disabled candidates. So it's worth thinking about that. And also just having a check of your policies, making sure that you've got everything in place. So there are a number of different policies nurseries will need, just to make sure that you are clear about your commitment to diversity and inclusion, and that everybody in your setting is aware of how you work in that respect. And, you know, we've got loads of resources for members, hundreds of policies and procedures. Nurseries don't need to come up with these from scratch. You know, there's loads of help out there in that respect.
Excellent. Thank you. Wonderful. And to continue on the theme of diversity amongst early years teams, we know that in many settings, apprenticeships have been and still continue to be invaluable in terms of recruitment and retention. How have you seen apprenticeships really used effectively to support the overall setting in terms of the workforce, and then the skills and the behaviours that those apprentices can show when working with the children?
So we talk to a lot of nurseries, and often some of the frustration can be that you might find people go through school and college, and they're applying for jobs in nurseries, and they don't have the practical skills that a nursery needs. Sometimes it can be as simple as, can they load a washing machine? You know, these are the sort of things that we need alongside all the wonderful stuff about child development. It's the sort of practical skills. Do you know how to pick up a mop and sort something out when somebody's kind of spilt their dinner on the floor? And an apprenticeship can be a really brilliant opportunity for a nursery to grow and shape a member of staff sort of from the outset, so that they're delivering the kind of service that you want and you need, and they are kind of fully trained within the culture of your setting from the outset. The apprentice gets to work and learn practical skills, so that by the time that they're qualified, they can then hopefully carry out their responsibilities to the same standard as much more experienced members of the team, so they don't sort of qualify with that qualification and then sort of start from the ground up. So that can be a really helpful way for a nursery to recruit in a kind of cost-effective way and to bring in a new member of staff. I suppose the flip side of that is that the nursery then also needs to be providing the coaching and the encouragement for that apprentice. So although it's kind of cost effective in that respect, it can also take a bit of time. So nurseries obviously need to be going into that with their eyes open. Accelerated apprenticeships are really good as well for practitioners who have already got some knowledge and skills. They might have a sort of level 2 qualification and they're looking to move on to a level 3. But they might have some of those skills already. So it's a good way of sort of assessing what they already know, taking that into account, and then the journey can be reduced as a result. So it's a really good way of upskilling. And when we know that often level 3 qualified staff are sort of the ones that nurseries are looking for, that's a really good way of kind of growing your own from within.
Wonderful, thank you. And to use the upskilling term that you've just referenced as well, in terms of settings having particular specialisms, have you seen many examples of specialisms within settings really adding value to the overall experience for both the children and also the families as well?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, nurseries need their staff to be confident. They need to know that they've got the knowledge and skills to support the needs of every child within their setting, and those needs can vary massively. So we're seeing a really big rise in the number of children coming into nursery with special educational needs and disabilities, and that puts a lot of extra pressure on the workforce. So if you've got practitioners with specialist skills, then they can share that best practice with the rest of the team, and it just makes everybody's lives a little bit easier. It might be around how you identify children with developmental delays or special educational needs. It could be practical strategies that they could use to support the children and their families. It could be understanding about sort of further support services that you might be able to leverage in to make the families' lives a bit easier. For nurseries that can afford to, offering additional training and development about these sort of things can be a really great way to keep staff interested and motivated. It's really rewarding for practitioners to learn and apply new skills and to see how they're positively impacting on the children in your setting as well. So it can be a great way to, we were talking about retention earlier. It's a great way to retain and keep motivated your best members of staff if you're sort of giving them additional opportunities. It's a way for for that employee, it's a kind of route to career progression often. It's a way of them saying, look, I've got these skills and I've been keen to learn more. It's a good way to sort of identify the managers of the future who are interested in sort of continuous professional development, and for them it's an opportunity to show that they're keen and willing to learn. And your nursery benefits as a result. We talk to people who have additional skills. It's not just around special educational needs, but people who are trained in sort of forest school that can introduce a whole new aspect to how you operate as a nursery and bring something really new. We have at NDNA, for instance, we have a Maths Champions programme which supports children and staff by embedding maths into play activities. So this works in it's a champion model. So the setting identifies a maths champion who leads the programme, and then they're supported by a deputy maths champion, and we work with them to build their confidence in maths, and they can then share that with other members of staff who then sort of pass that enthusiasm on to the children they educate and care for. And this is an evidence-based programme, so we know that children in those maths champion settings make 3 months additional progress in maths and language attainment than the children who haven't been in maths champions settings. So that's kind of an example, I suppose, of how additional specialist training can kind of help to raise the bar within the setting as a whole. And we've also used that same model to develop a special educational needs champion programme. And I suppose it's just a way of sort of peer learning within the setting, that the more different skills you've got, the more that can be then shared amongst your team.
Excellent. Thank you, Cara. Thank you. And thank you for sharing all of your experiences with us today. You really brought them to life. It was lovely to hear, and I'm sure that the information will be helpful to many settings who will be watching this recording. So thank you once again, really appreciated. And thank you to our audience for watching once again. And please do remember to view the other recordings that make up the full series of recruitment and retention on the Foundation Years website. So keep your eyes peeled for more episodes appearing soon. Thank you once again to Cara, much appreciated.
Thanks, Sam.